for the quarterfinals is the other total. So we've got 1 rep max clean, 1 rep max bench press, and 1 rep max overhead squat.
I knew it.
You know it. It's your favourite 3 lifts, that in one go, isn't it? Jack's perfect event.
Not.
I think the main thing that people are going to think about in this workout is the warm-ups. What do they do warming up wise? Like how heavy should they go in warm-ups? What weight do they start at, etc., etc. 30 minutes is a pretty long time cap. Although it might not seem it to max out in 3 lifts. But our advice is going to be to go build up to 75% of your 1 rep max on your bench press and your overhead squats first, and spend as much time as you need kind of like mobilising and hitting those positions, hitting good reps to get to 75%. In the meantime, whilst doing that, just go through some clean reps, just so that clean's starting to get warmed up as well. After you've hit your 75% for your bench press and your overhead squats, start building up your clean until you get up to your opening weight, okay? Now this is like we've seen last year with the 4 rep max front squat, a point where you can just start that opening weight as your kind of like, this is what I want to hit, this is our min tin, so the minimum weight that we're going to be happy with, and you start the clock, you start the timer, you run the videos, and you hit that as your first weight. And if you don't hit it, you stop the clock, stop the timer, and you go again, okay? So that then possibly 1 minute in, 2 minutes in, you might have done the clean.
Yeah.
You've hit the clean that you're happy with, and then you can move on to the bench press and overhead squat.
Yeah, I think just like Steve said, don't rush your warm up for this. So even before you've touched a barbell, make sure you've done all your movement mechanic work if you've got it. Your overhead squat position is kind of feeling good. Again, just with an empty bar, just hit all the stuff that you need to before you touch your barbell to make it feel as good as possible. And then, like Steve said, hit that first lift and make sure that you're good to go. There's not much else to that strategy-wise.
No, I think so if you've boxed your clean off, let's say by maximum kind of like 5 minutes in, you've got 25 minutes then to work through the remainder. So bench press, typically by the nature of the lift, you can probably get that maxed out fairly quick as well. Yeah. Overhead squat is probably one where we want to take our time, where each rep, like you have to take it off the rack, jerk it behind your head. Yeah. Like each rep is going to take a little bit more time, a little bit more effort. So just try and leave yourself more room in the tank in that 30 minutes to put into the overhead squats, as opposed to kind of like wasting 10 minutes on cleans and then another 10 minutes on bench press. Get the clean done, get it out of the way. Get the bench done, get it out of the way, and then a good bit of time left.
It's a really good point, actually. So on the overhead squats, it's for yourself as well, knowing, are you better at jerking from behind the neck? Are you better at jerking in front of the face to get it overhead? Hopefully you already know that. If you don't, I would just take a little bit of time when you're building up to that 75% to just play around with both to see which you can lock that overhead squat into better. And the other thing I want to probably touch on is the jumps. Like, what jumps are you thinking you would be doing on this?
Yeah, I think we've all maxed out in like a Super Saturdays, for example, and the regionals where you get 10 minutes to like max out in a lift. Like everyone knows like a comfortable jump that is for them. I think just like you would in a weightlifting competition, you'd highlight kind of like what you're going to be happy with. Yeah. But like that's the min tin, like what you know you can hit, what you're going to be happy with, and then based off how that feels, that makes a decision of like what to go to next. So I wouldn't be tied into like, oh, I'm going to go this way, this way, this way. Have a rough plan, know what your minimum is that you're going to hit, make your decision in that 30 minutes while you're doing that event as to like, well, that felt like I've got 6 more kilos in me. Let's go 6 more kilos, okay? Rather than if you'd wrote down jump 10 kilos and you felt like, that would be tough, but you just stick to it because that's what you wrote down, and then you miss it, you'll be kicking yourself. So yeah, just make sure you're always feeding back to yourself as you go. Bench press is something that probably not too many others do loads of. We put it in the program now and again, especially more so in off season. But there are really a few good tips for your setup. Are we allowed a spotter? Are you allowed a spotter to help you get the bar off?
Yeah. Pretty sure. Not confirmed, but
we'll make sure you confirm whether someone can help you off. But the main thing that we want to be focusing on here is your shoulder positioning, okay? So here, Jack wants to pin his shoulder blades back and down, okay? And then drive his shoulder blades now into the bench. And he doesn't want his shoulder blades ever to move, okay? So, look up for me here. So, if my shoulder blades move like this when I start benching, when I start pressing, if I move here, I'm losing that tension across my scaps and shoulder blades. And then I've got tension then to transfer into the press out of the bench. So those scaps and shoulder blades want to stay pinned back and down, and then just think about then extending the elbows when he presses, okay? So we'll show some good reps. So we get it locked out, locked in. First, make sure in this position here, everything's set, chest is out, shoulder blades back and down, and then it comes down to the chest, and we're just going to focus then on extending and locking out at the elbows, okay? So just do a few good reps. You see how his shoulders here aren't moving? And then if we show your shoulders moving off the bench when you press, so we get set, but then we start moving your shoulders off. You see at the top there how his shoulders are kind of coming off the bench. That's when we're going to start getting to that midway sticking point where your shoulders come off the bench, you've lost the tension, and then that locking out that last, third or so of the press is going to get really uncomfortable, okay? Also play around with hand positioning. Jack was relatively narrow then, okay? Do you feel more comfortable with a wider grip? The wider you go, the more pec you're going to be using, and you've also got less range of motion to go. The narrower you go, the more kind of shoulder and tricep, okay? And there's nothing to say what's right or wrong for you. It's whatever feels the strongest, and maybe what you're used to doing, what feels the most comfortable when you've unwrapped the bar and when the bar's in your chest. Like where do you feel you can give the most power when you're pressing?
I think just doing that then, pulling the shoulder blades together and down, you had a really kind of strong contact with the bench here. Then I had quite a big arch in my back as well. And then I've got a really strong contact with my bum as well, which gives me a lot of tension in my body. And like Steve said, I feel rock solid. And then the third bit of tension is just really kind of drilling your feet into the floor, and you'll probably find that you have to turn them out quite a lot to get that tension, but having those 3 points of contact really kind of helped for you to put all that energy into the bar and not kind of waste it wiggling around or like feet coming up or anything like that. So
I think it'd be worth, and if people haven't already since it got released about the bench, if I can just sit there, Jack, is watch some powerlifting videos. And there's a reason why they'll sit down and they'll get themselves, like Jack said, they'll screw the feet in first, and they'll get this arch here with the back, and then they'll literally keep that arch until they go back to here. They've got the chest up. I've got loads of tension here now through my lower body, through my abs, my chest, and then if I pin my shoulder blades down and back, my body, like Jack said, feels rock solid, okay? And I've got loads of tension, although it is just majoritarily an upper body exercise. I've got tension through my whole body. I'm going to be able to recruit a little bit more from core, legs, kind of all over to be able to make the rep. Watch the guys, the power lifters, how they do it. There's a reason why they can power lift many kilos.
This is super simple as well, but where on your chest should you be aiming to touch with the bar? And and probably one other thing is with your elbows, are you flaring them out? Do you tuck them in? What would you?
So elbows want to be underneath the bar. So if I rest here,
to draw
my elbows, directly underneath, so that when I'm pressing into the bar, all the force is going in the direction I want the bar to go. Okay, so that's important. When we think about coming down, we don't go too high, where the elbows are actually just in front of the bar, and we don't go too low where the elbows are behind the bar. So we want to make sure that whatever position it is, we're going to lower down to in and around like bottom of the chest, the sternum, but the elbows need to be underneath the bar throughout the press, so we can get all the weight transferred into the bar. To move it upwards.
Watch the pros. Watch some pros do this before you do it for sure. You'll probably pick up a few more extra things as well.